Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Janina, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today alongside our project manager, Michael. So, welcome to today's webinar, We Estimate Review of Program Options. Today, we will gain a comprehensive understanding of vSuite's program options with a review of key application features, including data list control and appearances, financial calendar, forecasting, general options, global grid rights, labor categories, markups, and program rights to configure controls for your users. After this webinar, you'll be able to utilize specific areas of program options to benefit your users, utilize the Appearances tab to customize aspects of your system, understand how program options impacts overall system configuration. As always, we want you to get the most out of today's session. So if you have any questions at any point, don't hesitate to ask. And whether you need us to slow down, revisit a point, or dive deeper into something, just drop your questions in the chat. Okay, let's dive right in.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, everyone. So today we're going to be focusing on program options screen. In order to get to the program options screen, you need specific admin rights to get to this screen. So if you don't have access to that, you'll need your administrator to give you admin rights. To find the program option tab, you're going to go to Tools, and then the drop down is Program Options. Okay. On the left-hand side here, you're going to see a few features. I want to focus on the things that are pertain to system admin and things that you guys can control and change in the application. Program options is a global setting change. So anything that you change in here is going to affect that part of the application globally. It doesn't affect a user-specific feature. That's usually set in the system configuration setting. Okay. So the first thing I want to focus on today with everyone is appearances. Appearances is pretty a common feature set that we use in admins and during deployment that people make changes to. So if I highlight the appearance tab here, you're going to see a couple of tabs that are going to pop up over here on the right-hand side. The first one is a pretty common one in our system. It's called data list. So in our system, we already have pre-built out data lists. Some are job type, system type, lead origin, vertical market, new action. Those items are already pre-built into the system. But with data lists, you can also create customizable data points that you could use on certain parts of the application. So you'll be able to create a data list like this one here is a PM, and that's the data list that we're going to look at right now. And you can see that I've created two PMs on here, and then this is the column, the category for the data list, and here's where you can enter a new PM onto the data list, and then I would hit enter. Once I do that, you're inserting the item list. You can set the label, but you can also set a default value, so you could fill with the same value, and then I would add it to your list, and now we have another PM in here as well. To create a brand new data list, you would hit this plus sign here, and to edit any of your data lists, you would just hit the pencil here, highlight it, and then you can edit the pencil and change the data list name. You can also delete data lists out, keeping in mind though, if a data list is being used in a previous job for reporting purposes, you may not be able to remove it out. The other important thing about data lists is there are these three dots in here, and these three dots allow you to associate the data list to a specific field in the application that you want to. So for example, here are all your data list categories. And on the right-hand side here is where I can make this data list available for either the new project screen. So when I'm starting a new project, I can make that data list available on the new project screen. I can make it available on the estimate tab for forecasting, or I can make it on the estimate data list tab itself. So this is the tricky part about this, and reading the description down below is going to help you kind of navigate through this. If you could see, here is the checkbox is letting you know that check disables it. That's why it's red over here. Double clicking it would rename the list item that you want in there, and then hitting the X here, it deletes it out. So that is how you would manage your data lists, and then simply assign that data list to a category area. Let me pause for a second because I know this one gets a little tricky, so I just want to make sure everybody understands that. And then I'll also show you the data list option where it sits in the field. They can also be required as well on any part of the screen that you want to show it on. Okay, no questions? Okay. So the next one I want to talk about is part timing. Here, this gives you the ability to set levels on the part itself to indicate when the part goes past a certain date for costing. So here you could set a level at level 1 to say 30 days out, indicate yellow to let me know that I'm close to my part that needs to be updated and get latest pricing. 60 days out, you're saying, this is way out. You definitely should look into this part, and we set it at orange to look for the price updating. And then we set it beyond that level. We set it to the color red, saying you really need to update this job if it's not been won. So that's for your parts list to give you an ability to change the days and times and set color codes to them. The status setup. So in our system, they're automatically on the estimate tab. There's automatically these pre-built statuses that are in the system. In progress, in negotiation, when you send out a proposal, that automatically changes. Winning the job. There's also deactivated on hold. Winning a quote. These are our default systems. You can drag certain ones over to the system in here and then make them visible. And then the ones that are over here, you can have the ability to rename them by toggling on them and double clicking them to edit. And then you can also disable them by checking it, right? So if you check, you'll hide it. So you won't be able to disable it completely, but you'll be able to hide it from the status tab. And you can also rearrange these too, moving them up and down. So you can reset your status when you go to the estimate screen for the status tab. Okay. Default folders. Some customers that we work with have pre-built folders structures in their system so that when the job gets created automatically, that these folders would appear uh, when creating a job. These folders, you can have as many folders as you want. They're just pre-built. They're not locked into the job. They're just pre-built. So the rep or the person can remove them out, engineer, and then they can change the names of them that they want. But ultimately, they're an ability to add predetermined systems or folders for your team. So it makes it easier for them to use the application. This is at a level 1. If you wanted to, we do level 2 folders, meaning that there is a sub hierarchy to that, so that there would be level 1 if you're doing it by floor, right? Level 2, and then within that floor, access control, CCTV, Berg, integrated system. You can delete any one of these folders out at any point in time, so you can delete them, and you can also add new folders as you want. Simply coming in here, adding a new folder into the system. With the folders, there's a nice feature that allows you to create a default system type and job type within that folder. This is great if you're working with an accounting software that has specific job types and system types and allows you to export to those specific job types and system types. You can pre-default those in the system to the job types you want. You simply come in here after highlighting the folder, drop this down, and these are the system types I have available. And these are the job types I have available to assign to it. Okay, and each one can have its own system type and job type. Okay. Any questions so far? Estimate options. So like data lists where you can kind of pre-build out a checklist for yourself, this is more of a checklist, excuse me. So you can actually create options in here and make them checklists on the estimate tab for you to say, do I have a state permit on this job? Do I need a manual lift? Do I need a subcontractor check? Yep. And just have like a little predetermined checklist for the rep to build out the estimate. So you would add this by simply coming up here, adding the item, and then hitting the plus sign to add it. And then if you wanted to remove it out, you could delete the estimate option right here. And then it will give you a warning if it is existing within the system. Custom labels are more of a prompt for you to change what currently is labeled in the system. So for example, in the start new project screen, there's a bin name, there's a job name. You could change those to project name, job name if you want. So there's the default labels that pre-exist in our system on the left-hand side. And then these are the text that you could come in here and change it to. So you would be changing the text piece here, not the item label item. Custom dates is another field that you can add specific dates in here to the estimate screen. So you'll be able to put in some custom dates that apply to certain things in your either proposal or contracts. And if you'd like, when you create these custom dates, you can work with someone on our document team to engineer the ability to have that pull a specific date onto your contracts or your proposal as needed. So sometimes I've seen people have an estimated start date. You can have that in there and then set a default value there. Let's say 30 days. Whenever I create the estimate now, this estimate start date will automatically be available on the dates field in the estimate tab and will automatically go out 30 days for this default date. Does not mean I can't change it, it just will automatically set to 30 days defaulted. And then if you do not want any of these, you can simply check the enable to deactivate them, and then you would not see them. So let me take a pause here and go through some of the things that we just showed you so you can see the practical use on the estimate for those areas that we just spoke about. Okay, so the first one I'm going to start is the status tab. Again, here's you're going to see some of the default statuses that we just talked about in the data list: job type, system type, type of sale, vertical market. And then if I go to the data list, these are the customizable data lists that you could create that I made visible on the estimate tab. And then there are the drop downs associated. These can be required if needed. So before moving forward to sending out a proposal, you can make them required. Custom dates fields. These are the custom dates that you can have on the application. And like I said, you can make them valid to a certain specific date, but you can also come in here and manipulate those dates. And with special programming, you could add them to any proposal or contract that you currently use. And the last one is our options checkbox. And here you can simply check on those pre-made ones you've created checkboxes. Questions, comments? Okay, good. Okay, the next one I want to go to then, that is our appearances tab. Now I'm going to scroll down to the financial calendar. So this tab right here, this is financial calendar template. This here allows you to set your fiscal calendar. So not everybody's calendar starts on January 1st. So if you needed to, you can set up your first, second, third, fourth quarter dates. You can simply come in here and change that. So you would set that here, and then you would go into your user and set up the quotas underneath each user to correlate with the fiscal calendar. Does anybody want to see quotas? I know that's a system config thing, but I can quickly just point it out if that's beneficial. And each user has a quota. This is where you would set the user's quota per quarter for your fiscal year is here. So that's where you set that based off the quotas. Okay. Forecasting. Okay. Forecasting, we have two different setups for forecasting. The standard forecasting here is set up for forecasting out the probable close and dates. So the first thing we're looking at here is the date, 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. Then I'm setting a percentage of what I want to capture in the first 30 days. So I don't want to capture anything that's 90% or greater. So that's why I'm setting it to 90. Same thing at 60 days out, I want to look at my forecasting for anything that's 80% or greater, and then 90 days is 75%. And then within that, probable close date, I can set out 10 days ahead, so I can change that to be 20 days ahead if I wanted to. And then next action date, I can set out to 10 days ahead. So next action is also a data list that is a drop down that's connected to the forecasting tab for both standard and weighted. So you'll be able to set those next action dates and set the times, the days ahead that you want to. Then you simply hit save. And setting the standard forecasting up means that you're using the standard forecasting in the estimate tab. If I wanted to use the weighted forecasting, I would simply hit weighted. And then in here, there are two toggles for this. The setup, forecast setup is again setting out the probable close date. So I want to set that date, and then the next action item date, how many days I want to set that out to. And then with weighted forecasting, this allows you to put a specific value to your forecasting so that you can actually put a percentage to it. So in this example here, you're going to see I have all the way from 10% to 100%. And I can simply select as I'm forecasting it, I select which part of the proposal or sales process I'm in. And then as I do that, the reporting will come back with that percentages in the weighted forecasting under the universal reporting grid. So you'll have some real control and flexibility with that as well. And you can create the name of the description you want and add this percentage to it by simply hitting add, and then description and value, that's the percentage. Questions? So toggling this down is now weighted. If I toggle this on, it'd be standard. You don't have to hit save down here and just have to toggle out. You will have to close the application and reopen it to use the different forecasting tabs. Okay, general options. General options here is this is more of a first function here is a search threshold. It's just the minimum characteristics that you could search, or maximum characteristics. So we can set a min max here. Same thing with contacts and parts. And then the other piece down here, if it applies to any accounting for inspection and lease, you can link it to a specific WeSuite item to map to a specific accounting item in your system. That would be test and inspect and lease. Okay. Okay, global grid rights. So global grid rights are what you see on the estimate tab. So this is what is visible and editable on the estimate tab. So first panel right next to global grid rights as I tab here is a radio button to let you know what part of the estimate tab that you want to configure and make visible. So the very first one is equipment. We have labor, chargeable items, RMR, the RCM lease piece, test and inspect, and if you use wire in our system, that's set up as well. So we're going to focus just on the equipment for right now to show you guys what we're looking at column-wise. So the very first column here is the field name. This is what's inside the database name. So you won't be able to change anything here. Visible is what is visible on your estimate today. So currently what you're allowed to see. If I click on it, you can just simply go through all your check boxes and see what currently is checked off and is visible. This is your column width within the estimate tab so that you can manage that if you need to. You can also simply just go into the estimate and drag the column rows across. And this is obviously allowing you to edit specific fields, right? So one of the big ones that I always see in our system, right, is that you may want your rep to be able to edit the extended sell or the gross profit margin, but as you can see here, the unit cost is visible, but they do not have the ability to change this, right? An important piece, this is global, so the minute you make a change here, it does affect everybody globally. But if you go, there is a system config grid right that if you make a change there, that will affect the user's change. So if you make that change there, whatever change you made to that user will be in effect. So that would supersede the global grid right. So whatever area you make a change to first, that's the affected area. Did I said that correctly? And then here are your captions. Here's where you're able to go through all the captions that you are currently seeing in the estimate tab, and if you need to make changes to that. The last pieces here are if it's formatted, so just really telling you if it's number formatted, if it's got no value, null means it's probably uh, verbiage, and then whether or not it's justification left to right of the columns. Each category, labor, chargeable items, RMR, all have their ability to make the global edits. If you simply just click on chargeable items, you can go through that. Tim, you have a question? I saw a hand get raised. Tim, I can't hear you if you're trying to ask a question. I mean,
Yeah, if you
Tim,
have
did you?
any questions, just please feel free to type in the chat box. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, type it in, Tim, and if you have a question, I'll answer it.
Okay, how do you charge the order of fields in the equipment screen?
How do you? I don't see the question. What's the question? How
Sorry,
do you charge?
how do you change the order of fields in the equipment screen?
Yeah, so to change the order of the fields in the equipment section, you're talking about for the grids or on the estimate itself? Do you want to change, Tim? Do you want to change it on the estimate, or do you want to have the ability to change it up and down here so you can manage the editing better? Well, so maybe I'll just answer this, and then if he has types it in. There's no way to change the grid area here, but on the estimate itself, if you simply just drag and drop the position, it should stay once you move the order across. So if I want to move quantity to the front, as long as I move it in my order of operations, every time I open the job up, it auto saves for the estimate piece. So just moving the column headers around here would do that, save it automatically. On the program option screen, there's no way to re-edit. I would just do it by what's visible and what's editable. That way you know kind of what you're looking at. But there's no way to format these up and down. Yeah, it's a good question though. I hope that answered your question, Tim. Okay. Any other questions on global grid rights? Okay. So next one I want to go through with everyone is labor categories. So in here, uh, you're going to see the ability to create a new labor category. So in here on the very top, there is the ability to add a labor category. So here's where you would create the new labor category and add it to your system. Please keep in mind when you add the new labor category, it will not show up until you make it visible on the, if you have multiple regions in the system, then you make it available in that region, and then you set out the pricing within the region, because labor pricing is done at the region level. So if you have different regions, you can have different pricing for different labor categories. But here's where you would create your category with your description. There's a show on grid, and then if you wanted to calculate this out, you can set up a default calculation. So if you have one region, you want to set this up here, you can default the calculation out. So what we have here is a calculation of 10%. There's a drop down here that allows me to make this specialty IT service a calculation. I can do it 10% on the material cost. I could do it 10% of the material sell, or I can do it 10% of a labor category. And if I do that, then I have the drop down here where I can specifically choose the labor category I want. So then if I add 4 hours of specialty IT services, then automatically it's going to do 10% to design engineering. Uh, and then in here, the last piece is if you want to configure it to your tax specific profile, it could be set to retail tax or non-taxable. Those are the two options for labor taxing in our system. And then just so you guys can see it, as a reminder that each region you'll see has every labor category with every region across, and each one can have its own pricing for cost and sell. So then I would come in here and put in my cost and sell for Atlanta, and so on and so forth for each region. You can also have a specific labor only region that you would set up in the system config. Markups. So the markups in our system are pretty standard. There's just two controls. GP controls the sale price. Therefore, if I move the gross profit margin up or down, then my sale price changes. And then the reverse, if I set the sale price, the GP is locked, and then it'll move based off what I change the sale price to. You can also have, if you're using material burden today, you can get the percentages from the region in the office. If you do any pass-throughs and you have burden pass-through, you could check that on. Same thing with any charge item burden. You could put a do not charge to the customer, and then you could set it as a pass-through for any charge items that are burden. And then here is a place where you would have to make the save to make that change. Okay. And then any questions on that? The last two topics? Okay. The other one that I think is very beneficial for everybody to know is the program rights. Here, if we click on program rights, there are two fields that you'll be able to control. You can make them required, make them visible. The first is the start new project screen when you create a new project and your reps aren't capturing information that you need that you want to make required, like starting a new job. They're not putting in the job type, they're not adding the vertical market. Here's where you can come in and make those fields required when they start the project. And then also, if there's something that you don't want to make visible, then you can just simply hide that in here as well. So you can hide it out. And then on the estimate tab, if let's say you don't need the job type to be required when starting a new project because they may be using multiple job types, but you do on the estimate tab want to make the job type required, that's where I recommend you come into the estimate job type, make that required, and then there in the status tab before they can move forward with winning the job, they have to make the job type required. That's also good for system type, and it's also helpful if you're using multiple systems that you can start to label them with job types and system types. Okay. All right. Any questions on that? Okay. I will just mention a couple other things. They really are more IT level stuff, just so that you're aware of it, just in case you do have to come into the system and do certain things. One is an SMTP. This is a global setting for the no reply email that goes out. So you'd have this is where it's stored. This is where you can test and confirm that the uh, email server setting is working so that you can come in here and confirm that everything that's set up required password and verification of the email address, the default email address is working. On the top, we didn't touch on it too much, but the environment, this is literally the environment that is connected to the database, the name of your database environment, and then as well as the report paths that allow us to read your documents, contracts, and proposals. These report paths where they're saved house all the generated proposals that are sent out. So there is literally a repository in there. Uh, and then in here, just so you know, if there's anything that's your scope of work and your dictionary is not working correctly, where you're trying to make sure the spelling is correct and you're typing something out in the scope of work, literally this is where our dictionary does the spell check. The other thing they'd note is if you are connected to an accounting system, I'm sure there's going to be a separate webinar for this, but this is just a general understanding of how to connect the accounting software, database it's connected to, accounting software you're using. So in our case, we're connected to Sedona, but as you can see, there's multiple different ones that we connect to. So this is where it just lets you know what your connection is, and then there are other accounting configuration stuff that we'll go through in the accounting webinar. And then brands and logos, if you do have any brands and logos currently, this is a new feature that we're working on so that you can have brands and logos added to your proposal. I believe it goes out through DocuSign, so we can get you guys more information if you're interested in brands and logos. But here's where you'll be able to add a new brand into your system, putting in the information of the new company. I think that's everything on my end that I wanted to cover today. So, does anybody have any questions or anybody want me to go over anything again if I went too quickly? No, I think we're good.
All right. So, Michael, are we good?
Yeah, I think so. Does anybody have any? I didn't see any comments or any other questions or anything. I didn't see anything. Is there any questions I'm missing?
Not so
I'm looking
far.
at the chat right now. Yep,
Yep.
yep. That's everything I wanted to cover.
All right. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and we hope that you've learned some good information to take back for yourselves and share with the team. And if you need to refer to this webinar again, it will be posted on our website by this time tomorrow on our website under Education, Training, and Webinars. And don't forget to mark your calendars for our upcoming webinars. We're still going to revise this topic, but it will be on September 9th and on September 16th. So we'll let you know, and please watch out for our upcoming webinars. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.